Welcome to On the Moneyline, a podcast by MMA Play 365. I'm Newsom and I'm here to give you the breakdowns and predictions for this weekend's event at UFC San Diego, which is headlined by a great bantamweight fight between Marlon Vera and Dominick Cruz. But just before we get into those breakdowns, as always, we're going to have a Base AI recap, which from last weekend at UFC Vegas 49, it hit 80% accuracy across the straight predictions over the 10 fights. That's only 2 incorrect predictions, a couple of underdogs in there as well. So make sure you check out that Base AI recap from last weekend, which will be in the Base AI playlist and our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/MMA Play 365. But straight into the breakdowns, because as always, that's why you are all here. The main event, as I've already mentioned, Marlon Vera versus Dominick Cruz, a really interesting fight. Dominick Cruz, he's got that funky movement, that figure 8 movement that he's designed and applied himself and now teaches also. He's a very, very difficult fighter to prepare for because that movement is very weird and very unorthodox, and nobody else does have that movement. So to try and replicate that as a training partner in the gym from Marlon Vera and even previous opponents of Dominick Cruz, it's just very difficult to do. Now, the thing is with Marlon Vera, though, he is surging in the division. He is rising. Last time out against Rob Font, he was able to win the fight with knockdowns by hurting Rob Font constantly. Now, the only thing to counter that with is Jose Aldo was also doing the same thing to Rob Font. So there is now some question marks on Rob Font's durability. But take nothing away from Marlon Vera. He was able to do what he needed to do to win those rounds, over 5 rounds as well. And he's very big for the division. He's obviously got decent cardio because he was able to go 5 rounds without looking too tired. The problem that I've got with Marlon Vera is in that last fight, he was getting picked apart by Rob Font and he was getting out-volumed by Rob Font as well. Now, Marlon Vera doesn't seem to have a point-scoring style about him, which is great from an entertainment perspective because he will go out there looking to knock his opponents out. But if it wasn't for hurting Rob Font and knocking him down in multiple rounds, Marlon Vera wouldn't have won that fight. And it's actually a lot, like I said, very similar to Rob Font versus Jose Aldo. Rob Font was piecing Jose Aldo up pretty much every single round until he got dropped. And the thing is, when you get dropped or hurt badly, it's pretty much an automatic round winner regardless of what else has happened in that round. So this is something Dominick Cruz has got to be very conscious of here, and I could see Marlon Vera dropping Cruz maybe once or twice throughout the 5 rounds, but I can't see it being a case of what happened with Rob Font for 2 reasons. One, Dominick Cruz's chin isn't all that bad, although he has been hurt in a couple of fights himself. It's not something that you should be overly concerned about. And also the movement. Like Marlon Vera's got this Muay Thai style, stalking, forward pressure, movement, very slow and plodding, but Dominick Cruz's lateral movement, and like I said, that figure 8 movement that nobody else has is just really unorthodox, and I don't foresee Vera being able to catch Cruz often enough to be able to just keep dropping him. And I think the pace and the speed that Cruz still has, even though he is aging, he's not really got too many miles on the clock as a fighter. So I still think that he's a fighter I don't think he's in his prime, but he's definitely not declining in my opinion. I still think that speed, that pace that Cruz has got, and that volume approach to his fights, along with mixing in a couple of takedowns as well. We saw what Frankie Edgar did against Marlon Vera. Frankie Edgar, an aging Frankie Edgar, who is very chinny and has durability issues right now. Even Edgar was able to win the first round and a half of that fight. So I think that Dominick Cruz is going to have moments in this fight. I think he's going to have enough moments to be able to rack up some volume, to mix things up with a couple of takedowns, get his movement going. I think Vera will win a couple of rounds along the way here just because of the power that he does have. And like I said, I do think he'll connect a couple of times that potentially could hurt Cruz and win him those rounds. So I think that both fighters are definitely going to be in this fight. I think it's going to be a relatively close fight as well. But I do think it's a fight that's going to go longer rather than shorter, and for that reason I just have to favour Dominick Cruz, who is a 5-round king over the years and just has that speed, pressure, cardio and volume and that crazy movement. And I think those things should give him advantages in this fight to be able to take a fight should it go later. So for those reasons, I'm picking Dominick Cruz to win this fight. And in the next fight, the co-main event, this one can only be fireworks. I don't see anything else happening for this fight apart from it being fully entertaining and on the edge of your seat. We've got David Onama versus Nate Landwehr. And like I said, Nate Landwehr is an explosive fighter, forward pressure fighter. He'll take 3 punches if it means he can land 4. David Onama is a fighter that, again, in my opinion, even though he's a quality fighter and the quality of his striking, the accuracy and how crisp his attacks come out is really, really solid. Like, I do think he's on a high level when it comes to that aspect of his game, but I still think he gets hit too much. And I think that's something that David Onama, if he is legitimately going to climb up the rankings and potentially become a ranked fighter at some point in his UFC career, he's really got to sort that striking defensive aspect out of his game. And because of that, I think Nate Landwehr is going to have some success in this fight, because Onama can be hit, he can get pushed back, and I think that he's been hit by lesser strikers and less aggressive, less forward pressure strikers than what Nate Landwehr is. So I think that Landwehr is going to have moments in this fight. Again, though, the problem with Landwehr is the fact he gets hit too much, and his striking defense is a little bit reckless. He isn't very aware from a danger perspective. And I think that Landwehr coming forward is going to get cracked by Onama as well. And this is what's going to make for a really entertaining fight, because both fighters are going to be able to land, both fighters are going to get hit, and both fighters are going to have the moments where they're probably in a little bit of trouble and they need to step on the gas and push their opponent back. The thing is, in that type of fight, I do trust David Onama more. I think David Onama's power is greater than what Nate Landwehr's is. I think his speed is greater than what Nate Landwehr's is. And I think those two things combined is what gives him the edge in this fight. Like I said, I feel that both fighters are going to have the moments, but the power and the speed from David Onama, the combinations that he puts together as well in those close quarters, in those boxing exchanges, I think is, again, going to give him advantages over Nate Landwehr. So for those reasons, I'm going to pick David Onama to win this fight. In the next fight, we've got Gerald Meerschaert versus Bruno Silva. And I think this is interesting because on the face of things, Bruno Silva should absolutely put it on Gerald Meerschaert. He's got power, he's got speed, his striking advantage in this fight is going to be vast, much greater than any other advantage in any other discipline between both fighters. So I think that the striking is going to play a big factor in this fight. But the thing is with Gerald Meerschaert, he's proven time and time again that it's these types of fights where he should be losing from a striking perspective, he ends up winning from his wrestling and grappling perspective. We've seen it so many times that he's scalped these fighters like Bruno Silva that should be coming out here and absolutely starching Gerald Meerschaert. So that's what gives me a little bit of pause and hesitancy being overly confident in Bruno Silva. But in the same token, I do think it's going to be difficult to pick against Bruno Silva because, like I said, I think Bruno Silva's got decent wrestling both offensively and defensively. He's fought in a Russian promotion before where he has fought Russians and they do just want to take him down, and he's dealt with that. He can get taken down, but he can also get back up to his feet. And I think that with Meerschaert, he would have to take him down and settle him down for maybe 20 to 30 seconds before really starting to do any sort of good work on top of Silva. And again, I think that's going to be a tough ask from Meerschaert's perspective. I don't think it's out the question, but I think taking Bruno Silva down and being able to keep him down for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and really doing good work for a prolonged period of time and over the 3 rounds, I think it's a lot to ask. Meerschaert might take 1 round along the way, but I do think that the striking and the power and the speed of Bruno Silva on the feet should be enough over the 3 rounds to be able to beat Gerald Meerschaert. So if it does go to a decision, I think that Bruno Silva's striking game should play a big factor in that decision. But if it doesn't go to a decision, then I think Bruno Silva has got the finishing upside because of that power, that speed in the striking as well. So for those reasons, I am siding with Bruno Silva to win this fight. And in the next fight, this should be a fun one. We've got Devin Clark versus Azamat Murzakanov. Now, Murzakanov has got that touch of death. We've seen that in previous fights outside of the UFC, but we saw it last time out as well on his UFC debut against Tafon Chukwe. Chukwe was winning that fight pretty much 2.5 rounds, and then suddenly Murzakanov had hurt him when Murzakanov looked gassed at that point as well. Murzakanov had hit Chukwe hard early on when he's fresh, when the power was there, when the cardio, hadn't kicked in. But in the third round, he still managed to land something that just stunned Chukwueze a little bit, and then that flying knee just put Chukwueze out. So Murzakanov, although he does tire later in fights, he still does carry power across 3 rounds. And I think that's a problem for Devin Clark here, because I think Devin Clark's going to be able to have some moments here from a wrestling perspective, and I think that has to be his game plan. If he comes in here trying to strike with Murzakanov, bear in mind Devin Clark doesn't have bad power himself. I just think Murzakanov's fight IQ in regards to the strike and the accuracy of his strikes, and I do think he's got a power advantage as well. I think it'd be a mistake for Devin Clark to come here and strike. So I do think Devin Clark will be able to wrestle, and even though Murzakanov can wrestle himself, it wouldn't shock me at all to see Devin Clark scoring a couple of takedowns early in this fight. But I do think that Clark's going to get hit at some point in this fight by something hard, and whereas Chukwueze took it early on, I'm not sure Devin Clark will be able to. And like I said, Murzakanov carries that power into the fights as well, into that third round. So if you ask yourself the question, does Devin Clark get out of this fight without getting hit once, twice, or maybe 3 times with something hard from Murzakanov? I'd answer no. I think he is going to get hit with something hard at some point in this fight, regardless of how good Devin Clark's game plan is and in regards to the wrestling and the takedowns, because let's not forget, to shoot a takedown, to get that wrestling going, you've got to get close to your opponent, and I think that's why Murzakanov's going to be able to land something hard on Devin Clark at some point. I think Clark's going to have moments early in this fight, potentially with the wrestling, but I just don't think he comes out of this fight without getting hit with something hard, and I think that something hard is what would knock Devin Clark out. So for those reasons, I'm picking Azamat Murzakanov to win this fight. And in the next fight, this is a fight that should have happened a few weeks ago, and I believe I've already broken it down, but obviously I'll do it again. Anyway, we've got Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo, and I think Nina Nunes is going to have a striking advantage here. I think it's going to be relatively obvious that she's going to have a striking advantage, and even if Calvillo tries to test her striking early on in this fight, which, to be fair, she has done in previous fights, I do think that it's going to be very apparent very quickly that Nina Nunes will have that edge in the striking, and for that reason I think that it'll force Calvillo to start wrestling. I think Calvillo will be able to take Nina Nunes down, and we have seen Nina Nunes controlled on the mat before, albeit against a BJJ phenom in Mackenzie Dern. But I do think Cynthia Calvillo's got similar characteristics in the grappling to Mackenzie Dern, obviously nowhere near as credentialed or as great from a BJJ perspective, but I think that Cynthia Calvillo will be able to do good work on top should she take Nina Nunes down. I think she will be able to take Nina Nunes down, and I think it is going to be a close fight, by the way, because up until the moment Calvillo starts shooting takedowns at Nunes, I think that Nunes is going to be winning the fight, the rounds. And again, I don't think the takedowns are going to come easy, but I do think that Calvillo could be relentless enough to be able to keep on the takedowns and be able to get the fight down to the mat. And that's where she should be able to do good work. So I think it is going to be a fight of 2 different styles. I think both fighters are going to have the moments, but across the 3 rounds, especially the later the fight goes, I think the better that Calvillo will look. I think the easier the takedowns will come. And for that reason, I am siding and picking Cynthia Calvillo to win this fight. And in the next fight, 2 newcomers, 2 Yazmins. We've got Yazmin Jauregui versus Yazmin Lucindo. And both of these debutants are actually really good if you go and watch them. Jauregui is a Mexican fighter. She has got solid boxing. She starts fights very methodical, very slow. But man, once she hurts her opponents or once she's got that read down, she smells blood. She'll go there, she'll throw a 20-punch combination, push her opponent back to the cage. And just those combinations are so accurate as well. She'll land probably 10, 15 punches out of those 20 in the combination. And again, once she's got her opponent pinned to the cage, we see her knocking opponents out. She's got round 1 knockouts as well. So Jauregui is definitely a fighter that is very exciting on the feet. In regards to her grappling, we have seen an offensive wrestling and grappling game from her as well. So she's not completely one-dimensional. She has got a grappling side to her, but definitely the boxing background and the shots that she throws with her hands, you can tell that her predominant style is boxing. But then on the flip side, we've got Lucinda, and Lucindo. This is absolutely wrecking me today with these names. So Lucindo is predominantly a grappler. You know, she's very, very good. Body locks, That's where she attacks straight away, gets the body lock, trips the fighter down to the mat, and she's got really good, calm and composed control on top of her opponents as well. And once she gets that grappling game going, she's very difficult to escape out under from. So with Lucindo, the fact that she's very heavy, but then she can switch to being light on top as well and float her positions on the mat, it's difficult to get back up to your feet. And I think that although her striking isn't that great, she does have some striking, but it does tend to be a means just to close the distance and get the body lock. She is more of a specialist into the grappling, and I feel like that's probably why she should be edged in this fight very slightly, in my opinion, because although Jauregui is definitely a solid fighter, and like I said, she's well-rounded, she's aggressive, she's got slick, powerful boxing, I just think that Lucindo is just a slightly better specialist in that grappling department. And listen, this is going to be an ultra close fight in my opinion. It wouldn't shock me for Lucindo to get knocked out in round one either, but I think if this fight does go late, which typically these fights in the women's division do, I think that Lucindo will have moments and more effective moments, just like I've said with the previous fight with Cynthia Calvillo. I just feel the longer this fight goes on, it'll mean that Lucindo's stayed out of that aggressive boxing pressure from Jauregui, and she's been able to get the body lock she needs and the takedown she needs and the top control time that she needs. So for that reason, like I said, I do think it's going to be a close fight. Both fighters are absolutely going to have the moments. Lucindo could get knocked out in round one, but I do think the fight's going to go a little bit later, and for that reason I do favour Lucindo very slightly. So I'm picking Yazmin Lucindo to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Lukasz Brzeski versus Martin Buday. And I think, again, this is going to be another relatively close fight. With Brzeski, he is more of a kickboxer, it seems, likes to throw heavy high kicks. He will throw power in his strikes as well. He'll try and be aggressive. He'll try and come forward. He does tend to end up in the clinch quite a lot as well, which is where I kind of feel that Martin Buday is going to have his advantages in this fight, because even though Buday's got power and he's got good striking himself, he definitely does his best work inside the clinch, short elbows, knees, and just being a physical bully, pushing his opponents back against the cage. So with Brzeski, I think that Brzeski needs to stay at range a little bit more, try and use some of his length, try and use the kicks from the outside to, land some hard shots on Buday. But like I said, Brzeski does have that habit of coming into range a little bit too much and getting clinched up. So that's where I'm siding with Buday a little bit. The other aspect of Brzeski's game that I didn't really like seeing, especially from his Contender Series fight as well, is the fact that he was tired. He was gassing hard very early in the fight. Deep breaths in round one. In round two, he just looked completely and utterly depleted from a gas tank perspective. Now, credit to him, he did push through that. He didn't quit on himself, or he didn't allow his opponent to start coming onto him and pushing him backwards. So credit where credit's due. Brzeski's cardio, he did push through it, but it's still not great from that perspective. And the fact that Martin Buday is likely going to have the advantages in the clinch, which is where the fights are toughest for fighters, which does expend energy, which does expend cardio, which does tire your opponents out. I think that Buday having those advantages inside the clinch with the strength and power advantage, again, I think that's going to deplete the cardio of Brzeski as well. Brzeski's going to have opportunities early in this fight, especially, like I said, at range with the kicks, and he does fire powerful straight punches down the middle as well. So all these shots that from a little bit further out, that's where Brzeski's going to have his moments, but I don't think he's going to take Buday out from the outside, out at range. I think the fight is going to have a long, prolonged period of time and long moments in these close quarters in the clinch department. And for that reason, I do have to side with Buday. So I'm picking Martin Buday to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Gabriel Benitez versus Charlie Ontiveros. I think this is a mismatch, in my opinion, a great mismatch. The only thing that I will say here, though, is Gabriel Benitez is at that stage in his career where he is getting hurt a little bit more, he is getting stopped a little bit more, dropped a little bit more, and I do feel that Charlie Ontiveros might be able to land something that hurts Gabriel Benitez, but I feel that that's his only chance of winning this fight. If he can't hurt Benitez early or drop Benitez in a couple of rounds, I think that Charlie Ontiveros is going to have big problems in this fight. Gabriel Benitez has got power himself. He's got speed. He's got movement. His technical ability in regards to his striking is much greater than Charlie Ontiveros's. Also, Gabriel Benitez's kicks are some of the hardest kicks you'll see in the division. He'll slam them at the legs, the body, the head. And what I like about Benitez is he'll mix those kicks up a little bit and he'll target an area 3 or 4 times till his opponent starts fixating on that area. Then he'll change the levels on the kick, and that kick will then be dangerous, whether that be at the body or the head, and he'll find openings that way as well. But then Gabriel Benitez, I think he's even got a wrestling and grappling advantage over Charlie Ontiveros as well. Like I said, it's just difficult seeing Charlie Ontiveros win this fight unless Gabriel Benitez genuinely does have a durability issue and Charlie Ontiveros finds that chin. I just don't see it as a high percentage outcome, and I just haven't seen Gabriel Benitez's chin that badly affected consistently to the point where he is getting put out 2-3 fights in a row in order to make that solid decision of yes, those durability issues are there. It's just a little bit of a question mark I've got, but regardless, I think Gabriel Benitez is the better fighter across the board, the more experienced fighter, the more dangerous fighter. So for those reasons, I'm picking Gabriel Benitez to win this fight. And in the next fight, quite the same actually from what I've just described with Gabriel Benitez and Charlie Ontiveros. In some respects, we've got Ode Osbourne versus Tyson Nam. Now, I don't think this is a huge mismatch. Like I said with Gabriel Benitez and Charlie Ontiveros, that's the only difference. However, I do see Tyson Nam having a difficult time of winning this fight without landing one hard shot that cracks Ode Osbourne. So Tyson Nam, he's gotten away with it in the past in regards to fighting competition that is a little bit lower level of quality of fighter than himself, so he's been able to sort of manage the volume from his opponent but then push forward and land something hard and knock his opponent out. And listen, Tyson Nam's got power in his hands, there's no doubt about that, so cracking Ode Osbourne and knocking him out, I wouldn't be surprised with. However, without that knockout, what I would be surprised to see is Tyson Nam actually outworking Ode Osbourne, doing more than Ode Osbourne to win the fight. And Ode Osbourne, his speed, his movement, and the volume on the feet is probably going to kill the fight from a striking perspective for Tyson Nam. But to be fair, the longer the fight goes on in the striking department, the more Tyson Nam is going to have chances of catching that knockout. But again, the speed and movement and how elusive Ode Osbourne is, I have a tough time of seeing Tyson Nam having too many of those opportunities to land that one big hard punch that knocks him out. I think Ode Osbourne, like I said, faster, better movement, more volume on the feet. I think he trumps Tyson Nam there. But the thing is, Ode Osbourne's got a wrestling background as well. I think he's going to have a wrestling advantage over Tyson Nam. Now, Nam isn't easy to take down, but I do think if Ode Osbourne wants to take down enough, he should be able to get it. And he's a decent grappler, Ode Osbourne. He will attack with submissions as well. So I feel that, like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a difficult fight for Tyson Nam. I think Nam needs the one big knockout punch to win this fight. If it doesn't come, I think Ode Osbourne's got Nam covered in pretty much every area. Outside, like I said, of that knockout shot. So for those reasons, I'm picking Ode Osbourne to win this fight. In the next fight, we've got Angela Hill versus Lupita Godinez. It seems like I've broken a Godinez fight down so many times this year. She's a very active fighter. She's a fighter on a lot of form as well. She's a fighter that has got a solid skill set. I think that Angela Hill's going to probably be a biggest test in her career. I think Hill's going to have advantages on the feet from a speed and movement perspective with that Muay Thai style that she's got. Angela Hill's got no problem with landing big volume, large numbers of volume in a fight. And I think Lupita Godinez has got to really overcome that. But I do like the forward pressure and aggression from Godinez, and I also like the fact that her wrestling's getting a lot better. She comes from a wrestling background. She's got family members with wrestling backgrounds as well. So I think Godinez is going to have a big wrestling advantage in this fight. And even if Angela Hill gets back up to her feet once or twice, which I'd imagine that she would, I do like the way Godinez just hangs on to opponents like glue, sticks to them, has a good grip, and then, re-wrestles, take the fight back down to the mat. And I think that's what Godinez is going to do, because she's going to have to do. I think if she keeps this fight on the feet at range, I think Angela Hill's going to win the fight just by sheer volume with good strikes and her movement. And I think that if Godinez tries that striking game plan out early in this fight, again, just like I said with Nina Nunes and Calvillo earlier on, I think it'll become very apparent that she does need that wrestling. Once she knows she needs the wrestling, she'll force it. She'll become relentless. She'll shoot at every opportunity. And that's what's going to slowly start pulling her away with this fight. I think that Angela Hill at that point is going to start overthinking about the takedown, being a little bit hesitant of overcommitting with the strikes, because she is going to be facing a takedown at some point very soon. And I think Godinez is just going to be able to start racking up control time. She's going to start racking up top control time. And I think that she's just going to be able to start pulling away with the fights once she gets that wrestling game going. And I think the wrestling is just going to be slightly too much for Angela Hill, who I do think is actually going to have her moments in this fight, by the way. But I just think Godinez, over the course of the fight, I think the wrestling, the takedowns, the topside grappling is going to play a more significant part than the striking on the feet. And for those reasons, I'm picking Lupita Godinez to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got a really good fight, in my opinion, between Youssef Zalal and the newcomer Damon Blackshear. Now, Youssef Zalal, I think this is his second opponent or third opponent. You know, he's had a couple of pullouts, and the UFC have drafted in Damon Blackshear. And I actually think that this fight's going to be a better fight than what Zalal's last opponent would have put across in Cristian Quinones. And that's nothing against Cristian Quinones. I just think stylistically, Damon Blackshear is a really exciting fighter. He's young, he's athletic, he's a champion, was a current champion in CFFC. So he's got 5 rounds experience as well, and he's just well-rounded. In regards to his striking, like, his striking's good. He's got sneaky, deceptive power in his striking as well. He'll put together combinations. He's got no problem fighting on the outside with kicks, coming inside, exchanging with his hands as well. But then from a wrestling and grappling perspective, Damon Blackshear is good there as well. He can be relentless with his wrestling. He got good traditional wrestling style takedowns, so the double legs, the single legs, and if they don't work, he's very physical and strong for the division as well, so he'll push his opponent back to the cage and he'll look for trips down to the mat. And then when it comes to his BJJ, his grappling, he's a very, very good scrambler. He's very aware of his position. He floats lightly on top when he needs to, and he'll attack with submissions as well. So, like, this type of fighter against someone like Youssef Zalal, who is coming down a weight class, which does pose some question marks, because Youssef Zalal has relied on speed, movement, to be a bit elusive inside the cage as a fighter. So coming down in weight is going to lose a bit of that speed and movement. So it's going to be interesting to see how good Zalal looks. But coming down in weight, I think he's going to bring some power with him as well. And Youssef Zalal ultimately is a good fighter. He mixes everything up really well himself. He attacks different ranges with his kicks. He's got good straight punches down the middle. His IQ's there as well in regards to just being very cage aware and, you know, making reads. So I think this fight's going to be a really, really good fight. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think we're going to see a true mixed martial arts fight here with a lot of striking. We're going to see wrestling. We're going to see grappling. But this is where I am leading to the newcomer in Damon Blackshear, because in that type of fight, with it being a complete mixed martial arts fight, I do think that Damon Blackshear is the slightly more complete fighter in regards to the different disciplines in MMA. So I feel on the feet, striking Zalal's probably going to have a slight edge. But when we start seeing the wrestling and the grappling, I think that's when Damon Blackshear is really going to take over in this fight. And I think that's when Blackshear is going to be able to shine and really show us that he is a top fighter. And even though he's a UFC debutant, he is the slightly more experienced fighter in regards to how many fights they've had. Only by one, but more experienced nonetheless. I just feel that this is going to be a really good fight. Definitely a fight to keep an eye on. But I am slightly edging towards Damon Blackshear because I do think he's the slightly more complete fighter as a mixed martial artist. So for those reasons, I'm picking Damon Blackshear to win this fight. And in the next fight, we should have had this last weekend. There was an issue with the urine sample from Josh Quinlan, something along the lines of it's not banned by USADA, but the Nevada State Athletic Commission in Vegas, it's banned under them or something. So they didn't commission the fight. They didn't allow the fight to happen. So the UFC have moved it to San Diego, who will allow the fight to happen. Now, obviously, I did break this down last weekend. I'm going to break it down very quickly again for you as well. I think Jason Witt's going to have a wrestling advantage in this fight. The problem is to be able to wrestle like Jason Witt's going to need to. I've said this previously in this podcast as well. He's going to have to get close to his opponent. That's just how wrestling works. So getting close to Josh Quinlan is where it's going to be dangerous for Jason Witt. Quinlan's got decent movement. He's got speed. He's got accuracy and power in his strikes and his boxing. I think that's a key thing in this fight. The accuracy with that boxing, the power that he possesses as well. When Jason Witt's coming in to wrestle, I do think that he's got a good chance of getting cracked. Now, if Witt can get in and wrestle without getting hurt, then I think this fight's his definitely to take from Quinlan. But we've not really seen Quinlan in too much trouble from a wrestling perspective. It is one of the little question marks about him, but I do think that Quinlan's going to be able to land some hard combinations on Witt. I think that's going to deter Witt from coming forward a little bit too much. He's going to be hesitant in closing the distance, shooting the takedowns once Quinlan has got his respect. So I think that Quinlan's going to have advantages in this fight in regards to that striking. I think he's going to have the upside should the fight go to a decision, a very slight upside, but I think he's got a big upside from a finishing perspective as well. And I think for that reason, it's hard to look past Quinlan in this fight. So I'm picking Josh Quinlan to win this fight. And finally, we've also got a fight that should have happened last weekend, but Ariane Lipski missed weight. She fell ill, I think. She wasn't healthy enough to fight, and obviously the fight was scrapped and pushed to this week. And because of that, they are fighting in the weight class above at bantamweight at 135 pounds. So both women don't have to go through that weight cut again, which I think is very sensible. I also broke this down last week, and I'll also quickly break it down again for you. I think that Cachoeira is a fighter that's exciting, definitely one of my favourite fighters to watch in regards to the division, because she will come forwards. She's that type of fighter that will land 3 punches if it means landing a 4 or 5 punch combination herself. And I do think that, like I say, she gets in the face of her opponent. She's got good forward pressure, and she makes fights difficult. And I think she's going to make it difficult for Lipski. I just don't think that Lipski is going to succumb to it over a full 3 rounds, though. I think Lipski's the better striker. I think she's more dynamic as a striker. I think she's got slightly more power. I think she's got a slight wrestling advantage. I think if the fight goes to the mat, she's got a big grappling advantage, especially topside as well. So I think that Cachoeira in this fight, she's got to come forwards early on. She's got to try and put the pressure on Lipski, but I do find it difficult seeing Cachoeira doing this for a full 3 rounds and being able to take a decision from Lipski should it go a full 3 rounds. If the fight's finished, I get that Cachoeira's finished fights before with, punches. She has got power to finish fights early in the fights, but I just don't think Lipski's going to get hit hard enough and clean enough in the early moments for Cachoeira to find that knockout. So I do feel if a finish is going to happen, it is probably more likely on Lipski's side because of that. And I think Lipski, like I said, has got the upside on a decision over 3 rounds, even if it's a 29-28. So I am picking Ariane Lipski to win this fight. And that's all for this episode of On the Moneyline. I hope you all enjoyed the episode, the breakdowns, the predictions. As always, thank you for the likes to the MMA Play 365 YouTube channel. Thanks for the subscriptions to the MMA Play 365 YouTube channel. Thanks for the likes to the video as well. As always, in the comments, I do appreciate the nice comments, by the way, not the one that we saw last week that actually somebody else fought back on my behalf. I only saw that yesterday, but that was pretty funny. And like I said, it is me that replies to the YouTube comments on these breakdown videos. So tell me who you're picking, tell me who you're betting. And if you are betting, I hope you smash the bookies on Saturday night. Thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm Newsom. We'll see you again next week.